Good morning everyone and welcome to this meeting of the Police and Crime Panel on Friday the 8th of November. Item 1, acceptance of apologies for absence.
We've got apologies from Councillors Eileen Taylor and Gwen Lowe, and also Celia Dixon.
Moving on, item 2, to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting of the Police and Crime Panel held on the 13th of September 2024 and deal with any matters arising. Councillor Carter?
If I could just raise a question on 8.4, which related to Hare Hills. Now the Deputy Mayor also supposed to give us any update on ongoing review of the matters surrounding the Hare Hills difficulties.
Is it working? I don't think we've got them switched on. We just, if everyone can just project, please. Speak as loud as possible.
Yeah, so as you know, we've got the live stream community outcomes meeting happening this month. I think it's is it 26th? 26th. And we will be asking the Chief Constable about his reflections on the Hare Hills disorder, about what lessons have been learned to date, and we will be asking some questions that we've co-produced with some of the community in Hare Hills itself. We're just going back to them with some questions that we think they want us to ask, so we're just checking in that we've got that right. And so we'll know more information then. So since we were at the last meeting, the Chief Constable helpfully reported where we were at that point. We've not discussed it because we've got this live streamed meeting.
Sorry, just as a supplementary to that, so I presume that the Leeds City Council Community Safety Partnership have been involved with those discussions.
Yeah, so there is an ongoing piece of work to look at the short, medium and longer term. So it's an ongoing piece of work and it won't end in November. It will continue, the learning will continue, the work will continue. So there's a huge piece of work around community cohesion, for example. Lots of work now with the Roma communities, not just with Leeds City Council but also with West Yorkshire Police. There's a whole series of working activities that have started and will continue beyond November.
Finally, will any conclusions ultimately made public if there are, as they say, lessons to be learned?
So we're not investigating what happened. What we're trying to do is understand the position that the police were put in on that day, the communities of Hare Hills are put in on that day, the response from all the partners and whether or not there's something that we could do to support them or improve that response by better partnership working. It's not a stick to beat people with, it's about learning and improving together. And I'm sure that if there was something that was stand out, we need to do this and we need to do that, that definitely will be shared with the key partners.
I think that goes into an operational sort of area that we would have done.
Yeah, I mean from the policing perspective, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. To note any items which Chair has agreed to add to the agenda on grounds of urgency, there's nothing there, so we can move on from that. Members' declaration of interest?
So, Chair, did we actually approve the minutes?
Oh, so sorry. Yeah.
I'm happy to move on, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, we move on. Right, we'll go straight to item 4. Members' declaration of interest. And there are none. Moving on. Agenda item 5, the Mayor's draft annual report. Can you introduce that report, please?
Yeah, I'll just say a few words by way of introduction. So as you know, one of the Mayor's statutory duties is to complete an annual report which comes to panel. This is a draft report and We're hoping that you'll give us your thoughts and reflections on the report so that we can incorporate those for the final iteration, which will come in February when the Mayor will be here, obviously for the precept conversations. We've tried to capture the great work that's happened, not just within WICA, but obviously with our key partner with Dr. Police during the last 12 months. Some brilliant key headlines around women's safety unit, bus safety improvement monies being used on the PCSOs on buses, for example, 999 performance, a whole range of initiatives funded through the Mercy Communities Fund. So some really great things, and we hope that you'll enjoy reading the annual report and will give us your feedback so that we can improve it even further.
I think we've got a few questions and comments on that report. So can I start, Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Alison. It is a well-presented report, and we welcome that. Thank you. Just first, right on the first page, I think further on in the report, it mentions that we ahead of target in terms of recruitment, with 895 more recruited, surpassing the target of 750. Do you think it would be useful to add some context to that, and perhaps what net impact that has had on recruitment? Because we've not added a net 895, I suspect, have we?
We've added more than that.
We've added more than that?
Yeah, but do you remember that the target was, the pledge was around frontline police officers?
Yeah.
So at the point that we reported back in May,
Yeah.
we had 895 additional net police officers
Yeah.
and staff on the front line.
Great.
But actually the recruitment was something around 1,100 additional. So the target was met, but Tracy wanted to give herself that little bit extra push, so she said front line, and that was the difference. But yeah, we've had that recruitment, and the recruitment of police officers, as you know, has been capped.
Yeah.
So those police officers are still in post.
That's great news, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carter?
Yes, it is a well-presented report, easy to read. In my view, one thing missing, a lack of statistics. At the end of the day, I suppose it would be very helpful, or it certainly would to me, and I suspect lots of residents as well, to actually be able to compare the levels of various different categories of crime. For example, we're open about this, so I'll use it in its widest context. In the Pudsey area, in a similar time frame, not identical, so I'm not making a direct comparison, but burglary rates have gone up substantially. Now, there are no statistics in here, and it would be extremely helpful if there were comparative statistics, because after I accept some really good things have been done, it's all very well telling us all about the good things. We also need to see how we're performing all categories of criminality, in my view.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. This is what comes from having new people on the panel, because the last panel asked us to focus on the narrative and less on the data. So actually, in previous iterations of the plan, we've had the performance data from the Police and Crime Plan. So as you know, every quarter you get a performance report, and the performance is looking at the Police and Crime Plan metrics. And we used to put that in the plan, and we were asked not to. So very happy to put the final metrics for the end of 23-24 at the end of this report, no problem.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful, particularly to the people who are here to serve and protect.
I think the burglary went down, but...
So, yeah, Chair, if I may,
Yes.
I'm sure that there will be some localised issues that has been reported by the neighbourhood policing team. But some quick statistics, there's a 9.9% reduction in crime over West Yorkshire in the last 12 months. That's 10% reduction in crime. If we then take it over a longer period, since 2019, there's been a 37% reduction in burglary dwelling in West Yorkshire. That's a third. since 2019. Since 2019, there's been robberies reduced by 13% and vehicle crime by 19%. However, in the last few months, there have been some changes, and there will definitely be changes in localities. But the overall message from West Yorkshire residents, whilst it doesn't feel like it, and the feeling is always different to the reality, crime is down on what it was. However, we are really up against it with resources, and I think we see that in our response and our ability to investigate all different types of crime. So there are, the quarterly performance report does have a lot more of that data than I think the council.
And I guess it depends on location as well as to the statistics.
Yeah, and of course it'll end in end of March 2024. That's the period that this refers to. But I know that burglaries will have gone down when we give you that metric. But if that's what the panel want, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Jo, did you want to?
Thank you, Chair. And just to reiterate what Councillor Smith said, really, that it is a really readable, well-structured document that really is public-facing and you know, friendly for the general populace to read. There was just one thing that sort of struck me around page 18, and police and crime evidence for the pace beds situation. And it talks about how the West Yorkshire Child Custody Scrutiny Panel is concerned about child remands to custody, including the observation of the county-wide West Yorkshire Joint Protocol, whether there's scope within the report to explain the benefits of pace beds as opposed to custody, just so people understand what it is that's trying to be achieved, and also what locally criminal justice partners are doing to address that challenge that it presents, just to raise awareness. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's a very good opportunity to demonstrate the work that our team have been able to do with all our partners, because actually we weren't in a good place and we're in a much better place now because of the work of the team, and particularly Simon, who was not here today to hear the praise.
Thank you.
Trevor, can I bring you in at this point?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Likewise, you know, very easily readable report, so thank you very much for that. When do you have to have it out by? It's not clear in the covering note when it's going out.
So we'll have the final no later than February when the Mayor's here, but I mean it'll probably be done before then.
Yeah, there's no statutory, we don't have to do it by a certain
No
date.
statutory date.
It's just an annual report that has to be done each year.
Okay.
Um,
I just had a specific comment. It might be helpful actually on page 32. I think this is an area that changed a bit with feedback from last time about holding the chief constable to account. And it's the sort of penultimate paragraph is just a comment in there about the audit committee reviews the risk management and internal audit reports. It's also responsible for reviewing external audit reports to meet the requirements. So that might want to go in. And it's not the audit report of the combined authority, it's the police and crime budget element of the combined authority, isn't it? So, and I just thought that last sentence, you might want to just have another look at that. It says also from the police our reports on budget monitoring. That doesn't actually tell you how you hold the chief constable accountable.
Right.
So I'm sure there's some meeting you have, one of your meetings that you'll review them, so maybe you could just beef that up a bit. I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Councillor Ferguson, you have a question?
Again, if I can reiterate what everyone else has said about the report, thank you, appreciate that. My question is a curiosity rather than a question, I suppose, really. I'm always interested in the notion of the right care, right person. I wonder if we could get a bit more explanation around. I'm always concerned about, there always seems to be mental health related concerns, with this, and I'm just worried that, we might not get the right person for the right care. So just some clarity around that, please, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not an art or a science, it's somewhere in between. We've talked many times about the amount of capacity that's been taken up over the years by the police dealing with mental health calls, and the contact centre. I can't remember, but a couple of years ago there was a big piece of work done that highlighted that something like 60 or 70% of all contacts were mental health related in some way or other, and that was a huge impact on policing. Many years ago, West Yorkshire Police, because I have to say that we started it, because John will say that if I don't, there was a piece of work done to look at doing some more effective triaging of those cases that were the responsibility of the police, or those that were the responsibility of other partners. That was taken up by Humberside, who created the right care, right person, or right person, right care, whichever way it is. And it's become a bit of an industry now, which the vast majority of forces have adopted, and of course it was picked up by the productivity review, as well as being an opportunity for policing to really focus on the things that they had power and control over and responsibility for, rather than picking up some of the responsibilities of not even partner agencies, because sometimes it's about care homes who are paid a lot of money to look after vulnerable people, young people or older people. Their first response being, let's phone the police, because then we abdicate all risk and responsibility. There was some of that going on, and at the point that a vulnerable person was reported in, the police were picking that up immediately, triaging as high risk and doing all that work, when actually some lower level identification of the whereabouts of that young person or that young person might have identified their whereabouts at an earlier juncture by the right agency. And so care right person is about understanding what the level of risk is. There's a little risk assessment done at the point that someone calls in and reports someone missing. It's obviously continuously reviewed, and information comes in on a regular basis about that level of risk and what is changing for that person. But we do try to get the carer, the organisation responsible for that person, to do their own due diligence first, take responsibility for the bits that they can, and at the point that it's felt that the risk has changed, West Yorkshire Police do come in and pick up that investigation. And we see, the Mayor and I see that every day, because we get force management daily logs, which tell us about incidents, serious incidents in the last 24 hours. And on a regular basis, most days, at least 50% of those are missing people. So it's a huge amount of work for policing at a time when everyone is under pressure. And so it's the right thing to do to give the public the best and most efficient service that policing possibly can. But it does feel a bit uncomfortable sometimes. And will we always get it right? Possibly not. And then those processes, IOPC, for example, will kick in to see whether or not policing could have done differently.
So is it like about time to triage who's responsible for what?
Yeah. And the police have supported protocols to support organisations to do that better. So, for example, we've got an online portal whose name I can't remember. For the Herbert Protocol, we've got an online Safe and Found Online, I think that's what it's called, which the police have been supporting, which helps organisations, maybe looking after older people with dementia, to set up files for each of the people in their care, and if someone does go missing, that immediately everybody knows, well, where did that person like to go, where does he used to live, who are the next of kin, so that all those checks can be made very, very quickly. And once that's all been exhausted, right, let's go to the police, because actually we've done all we can, and we now need the police and their resources to take us to the next stage. So it's not about abrogating responsibility, it's about sharing that responsibility with the key stakeholders and not just relying on policing.
So, Jack, could I just pursue that point? I appreciate what the Deputy Mayor said. Are you concerned about what appears to be now an epidemic of privately run vulnerable young people's homes that certainly are becoming a development in Leeds, and I know it is in Bradford as well, and I suspect everywhere in West Yorkshire, that is going to, because a lot of these organisations seem to be unregulated, other than the fact that they have to be certainly in Leeds registered with Ofsted, whether it's going to be an added burden to the police, and I'm sure it is. But what are your views on that?
So I am very worried about that, as is the Mayor, and we have spoken about that here a couple of times. So we raised with all the leaders of West Yorkshire our concerns about private businesses, actually not West Yorkshire businesses, but private businesses from London and the South East, buying up cheap properties here in West Yorkshire and in other parts of the country, in the North East for example, and running unregulated so-called care facilities, particularly for young people, and what powers did local authorities have to protect young people from those unscrupulous owners, stroke landlords. And actually Leeds were doing more than anybody else in West Yorkshire. They've been looking at licensing arrangements, they've been looking at insisting on Ofsted, for example. They were working with housing benefit to make sure that enhanced housing benefit couldn't be paid unless certain rules and regulations were imposed on that unregulated provider. They've been looking, as I say, at licensing to make sure that other premises nearby were taken into account, for example. So if there was a mate hostel in the vicinity, that they would raise that with anyone trying to open an unregulated facility and get enhanced housing benefit for it, so they could put some processes in place. But what, in the end, what the 5 leaders agreed to do was to raise that with their directors of social care, because ADAS actually were doing a piece of work which I'm hoping is coming to an end, because this was about a year ago. They were all meeting, doing a piece of work with government around new legislation to prevent unregulated homes having the powers that they've got, and not only that, but the amount of money that they charge local authorities, not here in West Yorkshire, but local authorities in other parts of the country, are outrageous. So we are trying to work as a partnership with local authorities, with ADAS, and obviously bringing in the knowledge of West Yorkshire Police to inform the way that those unregulated properties are managed.
Chair, as a supplementary, can I just throw something else into the equation? My concern is about the well-being and safety of the young people.
Absolutely.
And what you said about the work with the leaders of the 5 authorities is heartening. I'm well aware of what's going on in Leeds, and I've been the councillor who's raised a lot of the issues. One thing you haven't mentioned is the role of the planning authority. The role of the planning authority, certainly, as far as I'm concerned, is...
Councillor County, can we just bring it back to the report? I mean, we're moving into a different area.
That's how we started.
Yeah, we're moving into a different area.
But I'll just respond to say that planning is definitely part of the solution, and when I said licensing and working on, I mean planning was implicit, and I should have said that, I'm sorry, but yeah, anyone who's involved in supporting better decision making around supporting our young people, they need to be engaged in this, and so Tracy has had those conversations with leaders, and hopefully nationally ADAS will bring a plan back that's going to be helpful.
Thank you.
No, it's okay. I don't need to come back because that was my point. That this issue is rife in my ward, so you know, and it's an issue of planning and change of views. So yeah, that was my.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, I believe you had a point.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of small points on there. First of all, at the bottom of page 6, it says that 80% of victims are satisfied, which is brilliant. But I think that's referring just to victims of domestic abuse. I think because the overall satisfaction rate is 72%.
Yeah.
So if that could just be clarified, I think that would be useful. Also on page 20, bullet point 3 says 66% of those surveyed said they had been affected by a road traffic. Could you just have some sort of context about the size of the survey there, please?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is for the Vision Zero. There's about 1,400 people surveyed.
Which is a decent size.
Yeah, who said that they'd been impacted in some way by the KSI.
But it could be 300, it could be 30,000. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Was that everything on the report? Moving on, item 6, medium-term financial forecast 25-26. Would you like to introduce that?
Yeah, thank you. As we've spoken about many times here, policing, like all public sector bodies, is facing a cliff edge. Funding has not increased in line with inflation and other costs. And we know that West Yorkshire Police, like all our partners, the local authority, NHS, etc., have been doing a lot of work in the background over many years to mitigate against some of the efficiencies that we knew we were going to have to make. And this medium-term financial forecast, therefore, should be no surprise to anybody in this room. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into the details because I'm very fortunate that we've got Angela here and also Catherine, who's the ACO at West Yorkshire Police. But we are entering choppy waters, to say the very least, and we need to make some decisions that will ensure that people of West Yorkshire get the best and most effective service that they can, given the financial constraints that we're facing. Angela, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you. I think you've framed the position, and it won't be any surprise. You're all definitely trying to balance your own budget back in local authorities. I'll preempt, if I may, one of the questions, which I suspect will be about the national insurance, because I get asked that most places. At the moment, we're still waiting to hear about what mechanism there is and the quantum in terms of how public sector will be compensated for the increase in national insurance costs, so that remains an unknown figure at this stage going forward into the planning. There's obviously other announcements still to come, so this comes at a point. This is a planning piece. There is further information needed. We don't know what the settlement is yet from Home Office, but it sets out, I think, quite clearly the challenge of managing inflation on costs against the backdrop of income that have not kept pace with it. Thank you.
Yes, so we're happy to take any questions.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Smith, did that answer your question?
Yeah, my question was obviously...
Yeah, I'm sure.
Have you got an indication of the potential worst-case scenario? Has that been thought of?
Yes, there's a calculation, I believe, approaching 10 million.
Yeah, so the total cost on our pay budget will be 11 million, but that includes areas like the National Police Air Service where we'll get income from other forces, but we've had no indication at all as to how we will get the grants that's going to be distributed around the national insurance. We're hoping it will be similar to the pay grant where it's done on formula share.
Thank you.
Councillor Cantor, did you have a question? No. Trevor, did you have some comments on questions?
Thanks, Chair. A couple of things I just need to understand a bit better than sort of a general question. Just looking back, when we sat here last November, we had this, and then it comes back again in February as a sort of basis for the precept increase. Looking at the office costs for the Office of the Deputy Mayor, when we had it back in last November, it was something like 1.875 million forecast for the next 4 years. When we had it then in February, it had jumped up to 2.135, a 14% increase. And I don't think as a panel we had a chance, because of the other questions raised, to clarify why that was back in February. So can you just remind me, explain to me why that was?
Yeah, so that's the figure that supports the cost of the team that supports Deputy Mayor Policing and the Mayor. That budget figure has remained unchanged for a significant amount of time.
Remember, I made sure of that.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking back to Deputy Mayor. So this was in effect a reset to ensure that there was the right skills, team and experience that the Mayor and Deputy Mayor need to support them.
Yeah, and I should
14%
say...
increase?
No, so it was at 1.7. It was 1.7 for a long, long time, and then we went to 1.8, just under 1.9. It's slightly growing again because obviously we do have to pay the national insurance and the inflationary uplift, but also there's an element of the Women's Safety Unit which is in there, which is being paid for by the mayors. We've got a little safety reserve which is being paid for by that, so it's being paid for by the mayor.
Okay. I find it strange that
it was a bit of a
put through a
catch-up.
14% increase in 1 year at a time when the forces under pressure making cutbacks here there, and that it hadn't been planned for over a period of time. Because the same thing's going to happen again. You've got in your forecast for this year, coming up for this year's, you've got the same figure, 2135, for the next 4 years in there. And I just find it surprising that,
So a combination of that reset to catch up because there'd been no inflation to cover pay awards, etc. for a length of time. There was also some transfer issues back into the Combined Authority because we had to review all the terms and conditions to align them, so that then settled down. It was the team the Mayor needed as a new person in post.
Yeah, to deliver the plan.
To deliver the plan, and you'll note we haven't built in any further expected increase that we'll have to manage within.
so you're not expecting any further increase,
No.
so you can work within that figure for the next 4
Correct.
years.
Yeah. And also it's fair to say that some of the increase that we've got has been as a result of new monies that have come from central government, so we've had to have staffing to distribute some of the money from central government, which we might not get in the future. And so obviously it will take account of the new government, their decision making in the months to come.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, that explains that. So looking sort of overall, trying to keep a strategic level on this, I mean, on the page 4 of the paper about the capital forecast, I don't quite understand there. This is heavily weighted in the next 2 years and running it right down to about 3 million, 4 and 3 million for estates in 27, 28, 29, which seems incredibly low given the amount of estate you have and the work that needs to be kept up to.
Yeah. So again, operational decision making, which I shall hand over to Catherine to explain.
Yeah, so at this time of year, we've normally done a huge focus on the next few years. By February, we'll have addressed in detail 27, 28, 28, 29, which is why we don't normally include capital within this report, but colleagues have included it in. But certainly for this year and next year, we're building the new district headquarters in Kirklees, which is why there's a significant amount there. But you're right, it won't drop quite as low as that, albeit we're hoping that our programme for estates major work will settle for a few years because we've got so much ongoing at the moment, which is why it looks quite high. And hopefully we'll have a couple of years where it tails off again. I imagine it will go up again. But it doesn't cover things like manual work, that comes out of the revenue budget, so the estate will be maintained.
Okay. And what appears to be happening over this period of time is the reserves being dipped into more and more to help balance the budget, and to a point where we've got on the reserves position here for 28, actually dropping below the SIPA recommended amount of 2.5% absolute minimum. We've gone down to 2.39.
And I suppose every single local authority in West Yorkshire will be in a similar position, if not worse.
That doesn't make it right, though, does it?
No, but it makes it real.
So we'll
It's part of the work.
But it's a legal requirement to have.
Yeah, so it's
Good
not even
governance.
requirement. Our reserve strategy sets it between 2.5 and 3.5% of net revenue budget. External auditors don't give you a figure anymore. They used to a long time ago, but they don't anymore. So ours is between 2.5 and 3.5. So every time it's getting lower, we then have to contribute a little bit more. So you might remember a couple of years ago we put 800,000 in to be able to up it, and we'll have to do that again by that point.
I mean, how assured are you that this isn't just going to sort of start going down a slippery slope where it ends up with that there's nothing in the reserve pot? I mean, we just had a case. How assured are you if we could cope with something that happened recently in South Yorkshire? We had a £65 million black hole from an accounting error suddenly overnight. Now, you know, these things happen.
Accountant, you tell us.
These things happen. They happen. It could be that. It could be something else, couldn't it? That's what the reserve strategy is there for.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, we've had great oversight of our budgets and accounting processes for a long time. You were involved in that for some of that. We know what happened in South Yorkshire. We won't comment on that further. They've got enough to deal with. We're satisfied that we're not in that same situation. What I should have said is that we actually invited the Home Office Finance unit to come and have a look at our finances here in West Yorkshire, because what we want them to understand is the situation that bigger forces are in. Our understanding is that traditionally, for some considerable years, the Home Office have been looking at much smaller forces when they've been looking at modelling police budgeting, when they've been looking at how policing works, when they're looking at the potential for efficiencies. They've been modelling on Durham, a lovely force but very small, and Norfolk, which obviously is a much smaller force than us, geographically bigger of course, but smaller in terms of the numbers. So we wanted them to get some real life experience of a big metropolitan force and the challenges that we face. So they did come for 2 whole days, and we hope that that's going to inform some of their decision making going on. We've had our budget for this year, but there will be other budgets coming forth, and we will use the influence that we've got to make the case for West Yorkshire, as will other deputy mayors and PCCs for those other bigger metropolitan areas. But we are in a position that is not of our making, and that is as a result of year on year challenges to the budget. And we've now got to do here in West Yorkshire, but what the government does nationally, and we're having those conversations and applying that challenge, whilst also looking at what West Yorkshire are doing in terms of priority-based budgeting, for example, to make sure that the difficult decisions that are being taken have the least possible impact on the people of West Yorkshire. But we've got some difficult times ahead.
Thank you.
Councillor Carter, did you want to comment?
Just to go back to the comment on national insurance. On page 3 of the strategy, you set down the updated deficits for each of the next 3 financial years.
I couldn't get what it says on page 3 of the what?
It's on page 3 of the medium-term financial forecast. It sets out the top of the page updated deficits for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Is that net of any national insurance uplift we may get?
This was prepared before the budget statement. So
The answer is yes.
So it includes neither the expected increase or the...
So in the worst case scenario that you gave, which was what?
10 million for West Yorkshire Police, 11 for the extended...
Each of those deficits could rise by an additional £10 million. So in a 3-year term, national insurance could, underline could, cost the police authority an additional £30 million.
Yeah. But we're not expecting it to.
Well, given... Oh. What you can comment on that.
Well, we're not expecting it to, because those are the conversations that we're having.
I
with
understand
government.
the conversations you'll be having. I'm merely pointing out the situation is just as bad as Trevor outlined. It's potentially a great deal worse.
Potentially, and we'll get that clarity on the 2nd of December, I think, when we get more information about the route for repayment. And there will be a route for repayment. Any more questions?
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thank you. Just around the priority-based budgeting, I don't think the report provides that much information on the success or the ambition of PBB. It does indicate that service level changes are likely to be needed, and the level of these changes will depend on the amount that can be achieved through local productivity. So I just wonder whether they could expand on that, provide a bit more context and detail.
Yeah, so obviously we've been discussing with West Yorkshire Police various draft options, so nothing is concrete, nothing has been confirmed. I speak to both the Police Federation and the staff unions, and nothing has been agreed. There are lots of options being discussed at the moment, but if the majority of your costs are staff,
yeah.
And you're capped for your police officers, so there is a cap for all police officers,
Yeah.
which means that they will not reduce, they cannot reduce. The only way that you can make efficiencies is looking at your police staff resource. So there has been for a long time a vacancy factor that's been applied on previous budgets. There will be a vacancy factor applied to this budget. We were lucky that we were able to protect contact centre staff in the last budget. If you remember, we went down from 4% down to 0%, but it's likely that we will be looking again at a vacancy factor which hasn't been agreed, but maybe 3 to 4%, and that's being looked at in terms of the longer term forecast. But the changes to services, again, they're all subject to conversations and negotiations with unions, with staff themselves, and also the priority-based budget process doesn't just look at cuts, they look at service models, what the new entity would look like if you were going to change the way that it worked. So it's not as black and white as less people here or less people there. It's actually how can we deliver that service using more AI, using more digital, so that the work is still completed, but it might be completed in a different way, and that's part of the process of PBB.
So the panel can expect some further updates on that one forward?
Well, yeah, when we come and ask you about Precept, I'm sure you'll want to get some reassurance about what the changes are, and I should imagine that West Yorkshire Police will be in a much clearer position about what changes they're planning to make at that point.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Alison. I don't think we had any further questions. No?
Sorry,
Oh,
just,
sorry,
just, yeah, will we get some, just to go back on that point about priority-based budgeting, I mean, will we get something back with some figures on it to evidence how you're going to close this gap?
So priority-based budgeting is part of the efficiencies that will be made. So not everything will come from priority-based budgeting.
No, I understand.
And I think when I was on Police Authority and then the Police and Crime Panel, there were often efficiencies created throughout the year, and we were told it's going to be £1 million or £2 million or whatever it is. And priority-based budgeting will achieve similar levels of efficiencies, just in the way that it's a tool to achieve an end result, isn't it? So we don't know exactly how much is going to be achieved through this process, because it's all part of a conversation and negotiation and testing the assumptions and the models out. So the fact that an assumption of a model might say that you're going to achieve X, Y and Z capacity capability by making Y changes, that will get tested out. So what they want PBB to deliver and what it actually delivers might not be the same thing. So there's a whole range of different things that are going to happen to get us to that place, which I'm sure West Yorkshire Police will be very happy to describe for the Precept meeting. Having said that, a lot of the detail sitting behind it, I don't think we'll be going into all that detail. It'll be the global efficiencies that PBB is going to help us to deliver.
Yeah, it's just that in the paper it says that once you've exhausted the PBB process, then you'll be looking at service level changes.
Yeah, we haven't exhausted the PBB.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Moving on, item 7, Precept consultation. Is there anything you want to say, Alison, on that?
Yeah, just really briefly, this paper was written before the officers met with the panel, so that's why those conversations are not part of the paper, but we're really alive to the asks from the panel about more options, more information and a more timely consultation. So we're hoping that we're going to get the information we need to go live by the 2nd of December, so the final budget position we hope should be known by the 2nd of December. That's what we're getting told, so we should be able to go straight away thereafter. We've got various assumptions that we've got in place, so we can just, as soon as we know if it's £5 or £10 or 15 or 20, we can put that straight into the document that we've got and go straight away. Because I think it was the 22nd of December last time, because we didn't get the information from government until literally the day before that. And then it changed, if you remember. It went from £10 to £13, and we were really glad we hadn't gone, because we were able to then consult on the actual amount rather than £10, which would have given us less flexibility. So we're hoping to be able to meet those requests, and I've spoken to the Mayor about the options, and what we're hoping to do is to be able to ask Would you pay whatever the top cap is? Would you be happy to pay that, or would you pay more? We're not going to ask for less. I've said it many times here. It's gaslighting the public about what is possible, and if we say to the public, vote for less or vote for more, they'll vote for less because people are really under the cosh, and we know that financially. And then Tracy and I will have to make a decision about our responsibilities to the public in terms of the best force that they can possibly have, or abiding by their decision. And if they go for a lower amount, the political capital that Tracy and I will lose by going for a higher amount is something that we're not prepared to do when we absolutely believe that we have to go for whatever the government tells us is the cap.
As you can imagine, we've got a few questions and comments on this. Councillor Ward.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, my concern was about the time of the consultation. I think I raised that last year. Last year it was the 21st of December that it went out. And I think I did raise that with it being over Christmas, you sort of lose a week and a bit of people just, everything seems to...
So we're hoping to go as soon as we get the information from government. So we're expecting on the 2nd of December. We're ready to go on the 3rd. We've mapped out all the options, so we've got the data, we've got the finances, but we don't know which one it is. So as soon as we know, we're going out.
Joe, did you have a question?
Yeah, obviously it's a very focused question that goes out in the survey, and we just wanted to be reassured, confident that you're assured that what is asked meets the legal requirements with regard to consultation around this point, and that's been your
well, it's not been challenged yet.
Would you be happy if it was to be able to respond to that in a you're confident that it's meeting what?
Yeah, absolutely. We're confident it meets the minimum criteria, and probably actually more than meets the minimum criteria. But the fact that it hasn't been challenged is proof positive that it meets the criteria. Otherwise, we would have been challenged, wouldn't we?
Not always.
But in West Yorkshire know their rights. People here stand up for their rights, and I'm sure somebody in West Yorkshire would have said that's not right, and we're going to do something about it, which is absolutely great because that's what West Yorkshire people do.
Because in the Police Reform and Social Responsibility Act, there is a requirement around consultation about the Mayor's proposal for policing and crime for expenditure, including the capital expenditure in that financial year. So is the scope to include, will there be any questions around that?
The cost of the capital will be part of the budget that underpins the need for the precept to be set at the levels being asked for.
So you're confident that it will get you about the level of detail that you need? Thank you.
Trevor, did you have something you wanted to raise?
I don't know. Roger gravely popped into my head. I can hear Roger sitting here saying, well, there doesn't seem much point carrying on having this meeting about consultation because it's been decided clearly that you're not going to put a lower figure in. So
No,
it's going to be an existing figure or a higher figure. So, and it's not going to go out earlier than you receiving information from the government.
Because we can't put it out earlier than we receive the information.
Despite us providing evidence that other forces neighbouring us have already gone out or go out early with a range of options for people to look at.
And they're entitled to do that.
Sorry?
They're entitled to do that. Our feeling is that we want to go out with the best information possible that is right, and we know it's right because it's been published by government, and so we've got full facts. And then we want to be able to make the case to the public that the amount of money we're asking for, we can justify asking for that amount of money.
It's not really a consultation, is it? That's putting your case forward with asking somebody, with the best case for it, which I fully understand, and asking them to agree with it or not.
Well, yes or no is a choice, isn't it?
Not really a consultation, is it? It's binary. I don't think it meets the definition of a consultation.
But that's your view.
Yeah,
my view is
that's my view, yeah, absolutely. Only that it was a requirement of the precept that we agreed back in February.
Well, it was a requirement of the precept that we consider it, which we have considered it, we had the meeting. And that's why we're now going to ask if they'll pay more, because we didn't previously ask that question. Chief Compass up to go because he's got to prepare for the
remembrance.
Thank you. Chair,
Sorry, Councillor Smith?
if I may, I'm kind of aligned to Trevor on this one, just for the record. I understand what you're saying, Alison, and at the end of the day, it's at the Mayor's discretion, but I just want to put on record that my position is more aligned with Trevor's and the Mayor's on this particular piece.
And that is fine. The issue for us is that if we give an option that is below the cap that we are given by government, and a majority of people go for that option, then Tracy and I are in the unenviable position of having to either say to West Yorkshire Police, you cannot have the resources that you are telling us you need, which will mean a bigger cut, or we say to the people of West Yorkshire, well, we're only joking, you haven't really got a choice. You're not in that position.
I understand that.
So I am being upfront and honest because that is my mantra, honesty at all costs. And I am telling you that I will not be in a position where I am lying to the public, or I'm saying to the Chief Constable that the needs that you're telling us you have for policing in West Yorkshire, I'm not believing you, I don't care, I'm not going to give you the money you need to deliver that service. Because then when the data comes back that we are not meeting the expectations of the public, he will say to me, that's because you and the Mayor did not give us the resources that we needed. And that is not an excuse we want to be able to give to the police. We want to be able to give them what they tell us they need and then hold them to account for that.
Yeah, I would frame it slightly differently, but I do take
But you're not in my position, you're not in
Correct.
Tracy's position. And if you were, I suspect you'd be saying something different.
Okay.
Councillor Carter?
Very satisfactory, Chair, to be frank. I appreciate the Deputy Mayor's very straightforward comments, but she must accept, all of us who've been in any level of administration know that things can get very unenviable. And I accept to a degree what she's saying. Nevertheless, I remind her of a comment she's made on 2 occasions at the meetings I've been at since the short time I've been on this panel about public confidence in public bodies, politicians. And it seems to me that the meaning of consultation is being totally undermined because it isn't consultation. It's yes or no. Very few things in this world, I would suggest, are yes or no. And I do think, I suspect we get nowhere in this year because I don't even think you get the decision on the finance on the 2nd of December. Records of governments of all parties indicate that those dates always go back. And I agree with Councillor Lloyd's comments about consulting at Christmas. There has to be a better way than this, Deputy Mayor. And I appreciate what you say, in as much as at the end of the day there is a stark choice there. But there are options. And I think you're not doing yourself or the police or us any great help by having a yes or no consultation, because it's a much wider issue than just this consultation. It's the fact that local government consultations in general and public bodies consultations in general are rock bottom in the public's view, because all our constituents say to us, well, you won't take no notice anyway. And that's exactly what they say about this. And I think that by next year, I'd like to think that during this current year and into next financial year, you come up with a plan that actually satisfies all of us, because this doesn't.
Yeah, but we can't satisfy everyone all the time. And at the end of the day, we've had an election in May where the majority of West Yorkshire's public voted for Tracy, and for 3 years prior to this precept setting, Tracy has had a cap option. So you're telling me the public don't want this, and yet the public have voted for this. So I stand by the fact that the public have just demonstrated their trust and confidence in our Mayor. They voted for her on the basis of the entirety of her 3-year mayoral term, which included 3 caps with a yes or no consultation response. I should also say that we have lots and lots of engagement with the public. So our engagement team is already out and about talking to the public about the precepts, about their hopes and wishes for the precepts, about the realities of the funding situation that we're in, and all of those conversations will be captured, and so that we get a feel for the views of the public. But the public will understand through those conversations that we're having why we're going for the cap and nothing below.
Yeah, I'm not happy sort of leaving it as a bit unsatisfactory feeling that we're sort of at odds on this. I think part of our role as a panel is to make suggestions and areas that we think could be done better. And the whole bit behind this is, I totally understand your position, totally understand where you're coming from, totally understand that the public have voted Tracy back in on the basis of her performance, totally get that. But I think, you know, it shouldn't preclude us looking at better ways we can meet the objectives and legal requirements to do the consultation. And I think that's what's the fundamental behind this. And if it means that some of it you have to stick to a certain way you want to do it, okay, fine, that's entirely your decision. But there are other elements of it that we could learn from other forces, perhaps, and include to increase our knowledge and awareness and get more feedback from the public. And I think that would be the point that I would like to put forward.
Yeah, thank you. And any way that we can improve the way that we're asking the question, we absolutely will learn from other areas. We've got those notes from that meeting. We're already incorporating those that feedback into the narrative that we're putting to the Mayor for her consideration. And the only thing we're at odds about is whether it's the cap and below. It's the cap and higher, because some of the other areas have got the cap and higher, as well as below. And so we are listening, but it's my integrity, and I cannot give an option to the public that I cannot deliver for them. I cannot lie to the public, because that means more to me than anything.
Moving on to the standing items. Agenda item 8, the member response to any current issues. Obviously, Tracy's not here.
No, but
yeah.
So just to say that there's 3 things I want to tell you about. So first is the knife-enabled robbery task force. So the Home Secretary and Policing Minister invited West Yorkshire Police and myself to go down to the Home Office. I think it's the 29th of October to talk about knife-enabled robbery, which is on the increase. It's one of the outlying areas on our knife crime statistics that we've reported here before. We've got an improving trend, and the knife-enabled robbery is the one area that is going in the wrong direction for us and lots of other forces. A lot of that fuelled by retail crime, of course, where a knife is mentioned, may not be seen, may not even exist, but that is one of the areas. And then the other area of growth is mobile phone theft. Particularly in the Met, but affecting all metropolitan areas like West Yorkshire. So we had a really good discussion about what the problems are, what the data is telling us, and we've got an ongoing piece of work now to look at what will work, what could work, and what initiatives we all might want to start adopting and sharing to improve that increasing trend and reverse it. So it was a really good meeting. Just wanted you to know that we're there at the top table talking to ministers about what we're doing here in West Yorkshire, and I felt it was a really good opportunity to celebrate the work of the Fire Introduction Partnership, in particular Opgem Locks and the spotlight work they're doing, which is really driving down knife crime, including knife-enabled robbery, which they were impressed by. But there are lots of other things going on nationally that we want to learn about and then implement here in West Yorkshire. So that was a great opportunity to showcase, but also to start that process of learning.
Thank you, Alison. Any questions or comments?
No, the other update is that we held the Reclaim the Night event in Greenhead Park on the 27th of October. It was a really lovely event. Over 200 people came, men, women, children. It was a family event, and people really took us at our word. we had 30 stalls from local partners, women's sector, police and other partners. Hopefully it started a conversation about the use of parks, obviously linking into the work that Tracy's already commissioned around safer parks, and then the design guidance that she developed, and we've sent not just nationally but also internationally. So it's a really nice phase 2 of that work, and hopefully giving women and girls in particular confidence to use our public parks and green spaces, which belong to us all.
Thank you.
And then finally, yes, Women's Safety Unit. We've had the Women's Safety Unit for about a year, and obviously the Women's Safety Unit is a partnership between WICA, West Yorkshire Police and the Violence Reduction Partnership. So the SPR included VOG as one of the strategic threats facing the country, and so we felt it was appropriate that the Women's Safety Unit sat underneath the Violence Reduction Partnership. As indicated by Dame Louise Casey, she said, why haven't we got VOG VRPs as we've got VRPs? So we've sat our VOG work under the Violence Reduction Partnership, so Lee Berry, the director, line manages that, but we've now got a chief inspector, an inspector and a sergeant will all sit in that unit, supported by Erin and another colleague from WICA, so 7 staff, and their job is to really drive up performance around risk assessment and investigations, and those were the 2 areas that the women's sector, third sector, were telling us were most important to them. They said West Yorkshire Police are less good at risk assessing RASO and domestic abuse cases, and less good at investigating those cases, and we need consistency. And so the Women's Safety Unit is working with West Yorkshire Police to drive up those standards. They've brought under their aegis the Stalking Coordination Unit that West Yorkshire Police already fund to help them to get better too, and to bring that oversight of VOG and RASO under the aegis of the VRP. And the good news is that the data is beginning to show some green shoots of success. So in the last 7 months, we've compared performance with the same 7-month period 12 months earlier, and it's showing that rape offences brought to justice have increased by 28%. Domestic abuse charge rate is up 6.1%, which is 4.3% higher than the national average. Domestic abuse and RASO attendance rates have dropped, and preventative orders like DVPOs and DVPNs, SPOs have increased in the same period. Initiatives like forensic marking, the smart water that we've told you about, has seen a 71% reduction in harm, and 49% of offenders have not reoffended where we've used smart water. So it's demonstrating some really positive green shoots, and so the Mayor has agreed to fund the Women's Safety Unit for a 2nd year, which is brilliant news, and hopefully we'll be able to see those green shoots blossoming into a wonderful array of blooms that we can all celebrate, and the outcomes for victims of domestic abuse and RASO offences should improve as a result, and we'll keep you informed about that over the next 12 months. That's it from me.
Thank you, Alison. Councillor Ferguson?
Can I just ask the last bit about that, the improvements that have happened? Have you got anything around drink spiking? Is there any involvement around, because I know we've had sort of instances of
So you remember that in October, November 2022, there was a huge spike in reported, interest in reported spiking, especially by use of a needle. So people were saying that, mainly women, but not just women, were saying that they were being spiked by either by their the drink or by needles. And we did a piece of work with Alex Sobel at the time, with Leeds University, a group of women, students around the university, to understand their fears. It was all in the press, you might remember. And West Yorkshire Police set up a specialist operation called Gene Haven, and they were working with the bars, the nighttime economy. It's all around the same time as the Mayor invested in the nighttime economy, and it's part of the reason why Ask for Angela was set up, and that training took place with the nighttime economy providers, Walk Safe app, all that sort of stuff, taxi marshals. And so the information that the nighttime economy providers needed to have about spotting it, preventing it, really began to get out there. The data showed that the reports dropped massively the following year, and I'm not aware, so we do ask the question, I'm not aware that there's been a massive increase. There's been a lot of anecdotal conversations about it, but it's very difficult to prove whether you've been spiked because most people don't get medical aid within 12 hours, and the drug, if you've been spiked, the drug only lasts maximum of 12 hours. The work with the health is ongoing, so there's been a lot of conversations with A&E about if someone presents, you need to do these drug tests. So that has happened as part of the work we've been doing with health on our trauma and resilience pilot that we've been delivering. So what people believe and what is the reality is very difficult to tell, but the resource within West Yorkshire Police is still there. Opgene Haven is still there in the background. We've not really got an indication on the data that there is a return of that problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's some great work going on around that. Anyone else?
It's great news to hear that women's safety is going to be funded through the year. Does that come out of the Community Safety Fund?
So it comes out of the old PEG, it's not called PEG anymore, so we've got a reserve, which is reducing, and so it's funded by that, so it's wholly funded by that. So it's about £220,000. But actually the match funding from the VRP and WICA is actually a £600,000 unit.
Thank you. So next, we'll move on to agenda item 9, publish key decisions. That's just for noting. And agenda item 10, agreed action log. We've seen the report, and that's just for noting.
Yeah, that was just a reminder to people on those outstanding actions.
So hopefully we are, if not, come to me.
Agenda item 11, forward agenda plan.
Sorry, Chair, just going back to the action one. We've got one there, haven't we? We had a paper that was, sorry, I think 515.1, about the breakdown in the frontline actions and staff, breakdown in the ethnic minority group where possible, some but not all information about it. This is a paper that was sent, I think, to the officers about 5 o'clock on the day before the last meeting, which members didn't have a chance to look at carefully. Can we put that on the agenda for a future meeting where we can have a bit more time to look at it?
Yeah.
And if there's any bits missing from that, can we pick those up so we can take it out? Because it's been on here for a while, hasn't it? So I think we've got the information's around, isn't it? We just need to pull it together and formally put it on the agenda and say
You just want time to reflect on it, yeah, absolutely.
thank you.
Agenda item 11, forward agenda plan. That's for noting. Just for noting. Any comments? No. Agenda item 12, complaints received by the panel.
Just an update report for panel members to note.
Any other business? I believe Sam's just got something to say on any other business.
Well, it was just to let everyone know that it's Fiona's last meeting as she is moving on to a new role.
And we all wish her well. And finally, agenda item 14, date and time of the next meeting. The next meeting of the Police and Crime Panel is 10 AM on Friday, the 13th of December 2024.
I can just say that it's also Julie Reed's last meeting, our Head of Policing and Crime. So this is her final meeting, and we have Rob Forrest, who is the new Head of Policing and Crime. So this is the face you're going to get to know over the coming years.
So he knows what he's in for now. All right, well, thank you very much for your attendance. I'll close the meeting now. Thank you.
Thank you.